Well, if you need thrusters to move your boat around and get it docked, then you're just an inadequate captain. You should be able to do everything with just your engines and a spring line. Really. Now, I'm not going to say I'm one of these guys. Okay, so maybe I've never had a docking experience like one of those, but I've had my times when I looked less than perfect, and I just want to up the game a little bit and see if I can't make this work a little better. To that end, I have purchased a set of Sideshift thrusters for the stern of the boat. I already have a bow thruster, but I'll soon have bow and stern thrusters, and the ability to remotely control both of them from anywhere I'm at on the boat, either on the lower helm or the upper helm, or even with a little handheld remote control. So we've got some work to do. Let's get ready to start installing these things. Well, I think I mentioned in the last video that I was having a little trouble finding a yard to do this installation work for me. So luckily, along the way, I got some really good advice from a really smart guy.
If you want something done, do it yourself.
Okay, I have opened up all the boxes. I've got everything ready to go out here on the floor. I'm going to show you the components that make up the electrical parts of the system. I won't show you the other stuff they sent me. They sent me a couple of tubes of Sikaflex and Loctite and bolts and brackets and everything else we need, but this is the stuff I'm going to show you is basically the brains of the system. Alright, here's all the components that make up the controls for one of the thrusters basically. So we have two of our 12 volt Series 31 batteries here that will be hooked together in series to give us 24 volts. We've got our Pro Mariner Pro 20 Tournament 240 charging bank here that has 4 individual charging banks, so one for each battery. For each thruster we get a battery disconnect switch. We get the controller that has the controls that the thruster itself plugs into, and then the batteries plug into, and then this goes to our control sending unit, which these are the 2 prongs that we reverse if the thruster's spinning the wrong way when we get it all hooked up. And then this is our voltage meter, and I believe it's also a smart fuse or a fuse breaker if everything goes sideways on us. This is the control unit that goes to the controller here for the stern thruster. There's one of these for each one, and then there's one of these for the bow. There's only one of these because we're going to send our bow thruster through this guy. There is 2 sets of the controllers, one for the upper helm, one for the lower helm, and our handheld remote for when we're standing outside on the side of the boat. Comes with a lanyard so we don't drop it in the water. So this is the electrical components of one of the thruster setups. Alright, well, this is basically the part that does all the work. This is one of the thrusters. Again, we've got 2 of these. Just a couple things I will point out. There's anodes on the bracket itself, and on the end of each propeller shaft here. I've ordered a couple of sets of extras of these upon the advice of my salesman. He said these are a little bit hard to find, so it might not be a bad idea to order extra at this point, so I did. So basically what we've got is we've got these L brackets. Now if you're paying close attention, you'll see this thing is more than a 45-degree angle or less than a 45-degree angle. When it's bolted to the back of the transom, this is going to have a little bit of an angle to it, which will point the thruster away from the back of the boat just a little bit, which is designed to give room for our propellers. And again, the other requirement of the propellers is it needs to have 5 inches of water over it when it's placed on the boat from the water line, so that these don't just cavitate when you're trying to move things around. They sent us the backing plate. This will go inside of the boat on the other side of this. So that's going to go like that. That's going to go like that. Off we go. And then the only other thing that needs to happen is these cables will go through the transom and hook to that controller. All right, well, that's about the components of this thing. So let's start into the actual woodworking and build out our false floor and our sideboards that the control units are going to hook onto. So you saw me rough out my false floors, and if you're wondering why I kind of only have another piece of wood screwed on one side of it, you know, where this is going to sit in the back there, the bottom of the hole is kind of sloped up a little bit. So I'm going to have the leg on one side and the wood will be level. It may not even need a foot under the other side, or it might need a smaller one back a little ways from the end or whatever. Once I get it in there, I'll test fit it and see. I might put one more piece under there. But I'm using some wood that I glued together for the door of the bar fridge when I thought I was going to use this birch plywood for that. And I put 2 pieces of that birch plywood and glued them together. And that made a really thick, really heavy piece of wood, and I didn't wind up using it for the door. So that's what I'm using for these false floors, and it's pretty stout, so I think it's going to hold the batteries just fine. You also saw me mix up a little bit of just epoxy, and that's what I coated them with. I decided, since they were kind of going in what's technically a bilge area that, you know, tends to have some moisture, I decided it was probably not a bad idea to coat all that raw wood with some epoxy, and then I'll paint it just to look good. But for right now, I'm got epoxy on there, so we got to let that cure. So that makes this a good time to wrap this up, go cook some dinner and whatnot. I will just leave you with a couple of scenes maybe of what was going on last night. The salmon fishing guys are back, and right out in the marina out here, the big kind of bigger processing boats anchor, and then the little guys come in and offload their catch onto the bigger ones. It's kind of cool to watch. It happens at night, so I'm not sure I got great footage of it, but I tried to get a little bit to kind of show you what's going on out there. So next time you see me, hopefully I'll have all this woodworking done, and we'll be starting to hook some components to the wood sides and get our cabling done.